So, the 2020 election, you'd think it was over, but the story was far from it. Years later, in fact, the FBI asked for a search warrant for every single ballot in Fulton County, Georgia. I mean, that is a massive move. And the key to understanding why they did it is all inside one single document, a sworn affidavit from an FBI agent. So today, we're going to deconstruct that affidavit, piece by piece, to see exactly what the FBI was looking for and why. Okay, so this is it, the cover page of that application. It's called an affidavit, and this is where an FBI agent has to lay out all the facts for a judge. The entire goal here is to establish what's called probable cause, basically a really strong reason to believe a crime was committed and that you'll find evidence of it. This one document is the foundation for this whole federal investigation. So what was this all really about? Well, the affidavit makes it super clear right from the get-go. This wasn't about relitigating the election or changing the results. The investigation was laser-focused on one critical question. Were all the documented deficiencies in Fulton County's election just honest mistakes, or were they intentional acts that broke federal criminal law? All right, we have to talk about this term, probable cause. It's so important to get this. This is the legal hurdle the FBI had to clear. An affidavit doesn't say anyone is guilty. It's not a verdict. Think of it this way. The FBI is knocking on a judge's door and saying, hey, we've got some pretty solid reasons to think a crime happened, and we're pretty sure the evidence is behind this door. Can we go in? That's it. So the whole investigation really boils down to two specific federal laws. The first one is a misdemeanor, basically failing to keep all the election records for the required 22 months. But then there's the big one, the felony, knowingly taking away a fair election by counting fake or fraudulent ballots. And that is the whole ballgame. Distinguishing between an accident and an intentional crime, that's everything here. Okay, so where does the affidavit even start building its case? It dives right into the digital world. The ballot images, the data files, all the stuff that's supposed to create this transparent digital record of every vote. But what investigators found were some serious anomalies, starting with a whole bunch of files that were just gone. It all started with this number, 17,852. According to the affidavit, a Georgia resident who happened to be a chemical engineer filed a complaint with the state election board. He claimed that this many ballot images were missing from the 2020 recount data. And that one complaint is what kicked off a state-level investigation that eventually grew into this federal one. So the FBI started laying out a series of digital red flags. They found that these critical security files, called SHA files, were missing. So what's an SHA file? Well, think of it like a digital, tamper-proof seal on an envelope. If it's not there, you can't really prove the ballot image inside hasn't been messed with. A state election board member literally called this a red flag. And on top of that, they found files that were modified years after the election, and Fulton County even admitted it hadn't saved most of the images from in-person voting. But, and this is really important, the affidavit doesn't just present one side of the story. It also includes the counter-argument. An official offered a totally plausible, non-criminal explanation for all those missing files. Hey, a memory card could have gotten corrupted, or maybe it just wasn't uploaded right. This really gets at that core question. Was it just a technical glitch, or was it something else? Now, things get even more complicated when you look at duplicated ballots, and this is a really nuanced point. A data analyst who went through the images concluded that yes, ballots were duplicated, but he didn't think it was to help one candidate. He believed the goal was just to make the messy recount numbers line up with the original count. Now, that could still be a crime, but the motive is obviously a huge part of the story. All right, so the investigation wasn't just about pixels and data files. Nope. The affidavit then pivots to the physical stuff, the actual paper ballots and the all-important receipts printed out by the voting machines. And for this, they relied on testimony from people who were actually in the room. And this is a really compelling piece of testimony, straight from a poll manager with 25 years of experience. She said that during the hand recount, she stumbled on a batch of 107 ballots that were marked as absentee. But there was a big problem. They were pristine. They hadn't been folded to fit into an envelope like they should have been. To her, they just looked way too clean. They didn't look right. So how do you actually verify vote counts? Well, you use these things, tabulator tapes. Just think of them as the official receipt you get from the voting machine. It prints out the final totals for each candidate, and poll workers have to sign it to make sure everything adds up. They are an absolutely crucial piece of the puzzle for confirming the final count. Then the affidavit gets a bit technical, but stick with me here. It brings in a cybersecurity expert who found something really strange. See, every voting machine has what's called a protective counter. The easiest way to think about it is like the odometer in your car. It just tracks the total number of ballots the machine has ever scanned in its lifetime. So if you scan 100 ballots, the counter should go up by 100. Simple, right? But this expert found tapes from the same machine where this number didn't change at all. His theory? It suggested that someone might have just used the memory cards to print out a final receipt without ever actually scanning any real ballots. So, okay, let's take a step back. You've got all this stuff piling up. Missing digital files, ballots that look too perfect, weird machine tapes, and it all leads to the central dilemma that the affidavits keeps coming back to. The same one that multiple official reviews struggled with. Was all this evidence of a coordinated conspiracy, or was it just the result of total systemic chaos? So, in the chaos corner, you have this quote from a report by an independent monitor. A firm called Seven Hills Strategies was hired by the state to watch the election, and they concluded that Fulton County's processes were, and I'm quoting here, extremely sloppy and filled with chain of custody issues. And it wasn't just one group saying this. Here's another, different state-appointed review board that came to almost the exact same conclusion. They found no evidence of fraud, dishonesty, or intentional misconduct, but they did find persistent disorganization. You see this theme of just chaos coming up over and over again. Right. So here's maybe the most important thing to remember about this affidavit. It's not trying to give us the final answer. Instead, it's making an argument. It's saying that to get the answer, to figure out if a crime was really committed, investigators need to go directly to the source. And that is what leads to the warrant itself. And this is what it was all for. This is the FBI shopping list that they laid out for the judge. And you can see it's not a fishing expedition. It's incredibly specific. They wanted all the physical ballots, all the tabulator tapes, all the digital ballot images from every count, and all the voter rolls. Essentially, they wanted every single piece of the 2020 election puzzle from Fulton County so they could conduct their own forensic deep dive. And so when you boil it all down, after all the technical details and the witness statements, this entire affidavit leaves us wrestling with one huge question. We've seen evidence of some pretty big procedural failures. We've heard official reports describe the whole situation as chaotic but not fraudulent. But we've also seen anomalies that federal investigators clearly thought were serious enough to launch a criminal investigation. And so we're left with this. When our incredibly complex election systems break down, where exactly is the line between simple human error and a federal crime?